Howdy, SMITE fans, and happy Friday to everyone out there. It's another day of SMITE esports action. We're going to be starting things off over at the SMITE Challenger Circuit here. Then we'll have the waiting room, then the SPL coming up shortly after that. Yeah, I know, we went for, like 10 hours yesterday with SCC, and we still have more to go. We're going to be kicking things off with the EU side of things today, with our first match going to be the Niflheim Wargs up against the Aaru Scorpions. But it's not just me here. I'm J-Mac. I got Mifflin sitting by me. He'll be joining me today as we get ready to jump into this set specifically. And right now, Mifflin, we're looking at the top seed versus the bottom seed right now. This is a must-win game if the Scorpions want a chance to make it to Masters.
Yeah, lots of weight here on the Scorpions specifically. I mean, this is a squad of relatively new talent, so I think maybe a black mark on their career if they aren't able to make it, but certainly a strong team they have to line up against. I'm excited for this one. The only thing you should know about this set is that you have to watch it.
You definitely want to tune into this one. If you missed any of our action yesterday, which I don't know how you could have for how long we were going through, we started the day off yesterday with the Gladiators versus the Mambo. That went 2-1 to Hex Mambo, and then we had the Ferrymen and the Ravens. That set went 2-1 to the Ravens, and now we make our way over to our final European SCC match of the week with the Scorpions and the Niflheim Wargs. And don't worry, we'll still have our final NA one. That'll take place tomorrow on that end of it. But we'll take a look at the standings here just to kind of get an idea of where everybody is right now. And it's right in that split middle, 2-2 between Hex Mambo, Gilded Gladiators, the Highland Ravens with their victory yesterday. Were able to get a 3-1 up. Ferryman down 1-3. And the Aaru Scorpions, like I said, this is one that they need to win in order to have a chance to make it into the to make it to Masters here, especially just because they've got to try and tango with Mambo, Gilded Gladiators, and Ferryman, and they basically also have to hope that all of those teams lose for them to be able to make it in there.
Yeah, and never do you want the fate of your LAN career or moving up to a big tournament to be in the hands of somebody else. If ever you have to say to yourself, okay, I need to win, but I also need these guys to win and these guys to lose. That is one of the worst feelings as a competitor. Generally, you try and avoid being put into this situation, but I mean, silver linings where they lie. I suppose you could technically still make it.
Yeah, but they're going to have to go through a very tough team to start this one out. The undefeated squad here in the European side of things, it will be the Niflheim Wargs with Kana, Sarpe, Angry, Preds, and Spudio lining out that roster there. And it's probably no surprise that a team like this has such a record that it is, a 2-0 last week over the Gilded Gladiators. I mean, this team jumping here into the USCC with all of the different top teams from last season, all now forming into this one kind of super team. They have looked dominant here for the Wargs.
And there's plenty of competitive talent on this squad. I mean, I feel like not enough people talk about the fact that Preds was one of the console guys that was dominated the European scene. I mean, we know what Angry's capable of and what he's been doing over the last couple of years. I feel like Spudio has really evolved his gameplay as well, but the standout for me, and well, maybe it's my my competitive biases coming into rear their head, has got to be Sarpe out of the jungle, man. The Thor performances, these just highly dominant matches where he starts a little bit behind and then says, oh wait, hold on, I'm like actually really good at hitting all my buttons, waits till that 10-minute mark and starts to really elevate himself. It's just so impressive because it is legitimately hard in the jungle to be like 0-3 at the 10-minute mark and then turn an 0-3 game into a 10-4 game just 10 minutes later. And that's exactly what we've seen from Sarpe.
And it feels like even over in the solo lane with Kana, solo lane is kind of a weird god pool as far as the EU scene is concerned out there. I mean, we talk a lot about, Deathwalker and what he's done through his SPL career. We talk about the strange things that Mogat likes to come out here and play. But Kana is one of those players who really just sticks to the meta, but he just plays these meta gods better than a lot of the other talent out here in the EU.
Yeah, I mean, he is very, very capable of playing every single one of these solo lane selections at the highest level. That's been his general MO since I've seen Kana, all right? And I expect him to be able to keep running with that. It comes with playing the game as often as he does. That guy likes to grind.
Yeah, he definitely does here. But they're going to be matching up against the Aaru Scorpions, the lowest seed team right now in the EU. Like I said, they need to find a win here and then kind of hope that the stars align alongside them for a few more of these matches for themselves in order to try and make it to the Masters land. That one's rounded with Ugly One, French Emperor, Picarino, Calvin, and Davey. Maybe a little surprising that this is the team that's sitting out to the bottom with such talent like Picarino and Calvin popping in here. And then I'm just going to say it out here. French Emperor had a really strong debut coming into the SCC, even during the qualifiers. This team during that qualification stage really did impress, but so far they haven't been able to close out these sets and find some big wins yet.
Yeah, the major weakness of the Scorpions has remained the same week in and week out. It's been the same this entire year so far, and it's their inability to transition early game leads into substantial mid to late game leads. They aren't able to pick up these highly impactful objectives, or when they are, they struggle on the siege. It just seems like every single time they put themselves into a winning position, one misstep, one fumble is what costs them the match. Sometimes it's just waiting a little bit too long to push their lead. Sometimes it's fumbling a team fight around these objectives. That said, the strength of this team, which has been their strength the entire time, is the ability to play that early game very, very well. You bring up French Emperor and his great debut performance. I'd argue he's run with it. The early game performances on even picks like this Nemesis have been dominant, stifling for the opposition. The laning phase has not once been a weakness for the Aaru Scorpions, and this is going to be a through thread for teams that are relatively, air quotes, new to the league. Is sure, you are all incredibly mechanically talented. You are all very capable of playing your roles at a very high level. But when you don't have traditional leadership, when you don't have that competitive pedigree, that history in the league, it's hard to figure out how to address and rectify some of these issues as a team. And, well, the Scorpions have been struggling in that regard.
Yeah, a lot of their success, like we talked about, coming from French Emperor over there into the jungle. Even Calvin has been able to make some strong waves over there into the duo lane. But we'll see how these picks break out here for EU as we jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 between the Niflheim Wargs and the Aaru Scorpions. One of the more common kind of first pick gods has been popping up strictly really only in the EU area has been this Heimdall. It really seems that a lot of these teams, specifically teams like with Vapor's Coast on there, really want to try and first pick this god as often as they can, or just make sure that the enemy team can't get that Heimdall.
Yeah, Heimdall is just I feel like even still slept on a little bit, but a very versatile pick in that he's got great team fight presence. Just Gallarhorn on its own, the second ability, channeling it fully, just the horn, not even the knockup, does ridiculous damage in the middle of a team fight. It is a large, wide AoE. It's incredibly hard to dive this guy because of the knockup on Gallarhorn. CC immunity in the ultimate, the ability to essentially globally teleport while damage immune if you've got your Aegis available. And you also are one of the hardest hitting hunters in the game just by nature of throwing axes and having that insane auto attack pattern. So Heimdall, a pick that I'm surprised we don't see a little bit more often in North America and in the SPL, because the strengths that he had even in previous seasons where he was prioritizing the SPL are certainly still there. He still fits the build style very well. Maybe the European SEC just a little bit ahead of the meta.
Maybe so. I mean, it is kind of that flip of the script there, where normally it's, they leave the Medusa up, a team will either first pick or second pick, that kind of a god, and then you kind of fall down and figure out which hunters you go from there. But yeah, Europe really loves to go for this Heimdall. It's dodgy Medusa and Cthulhu all banned away by the Wargs. Cthulhu really a popular god right now for that solo lane pick, and then Cleanathoth and Kepri all banned out. That does leave the Heimdall for the Wargs and a Fafnir to round out that dual lane. On the opposite side, Ardio and Nemesis. And Nemesis, we talked about French Emperor's ability to really carry on that god. He'll pick that one up here.
Yeah, but taking the Nemesis so early, I don't feel like it is such a prioritized pick that you need to first to it. You don't need to pick it in that first 2 slot. And even in taking it so early in your draft, you are essentially de-incentivizing the Wargs from picking some gods that would play into the strengths of Nemesis. Things like the Cthulhu, things that really will slow themselves down, the Ymirs, the Ares, the immobile guardians of the world. Now, having seen Nemesis, the Wargs will say, okay, well, maybe we pick a guardian that's a little bit more mobile, Fafnir locked in. All right, let's get a jungler that can very easily deal with that shield, the Nemesis third ability. Oh, who's got a couple stuns? Thor, and it's also one of Sarpei's favorite picks. So having that ultimate stun, the follow-up stun from the wall means that it's going to be very difficult for Nemesis to get involved in the early game. I think that certainly a pick that the French Emperor has proven he is very adept at playing, but maybe one he could have waited a little bit longer into the draft to see whether or not it was worth playing.
Sobek and Ho Yi banned away by the Wargs. Our Scorpions will take away Persephone and Bellona. So a little bit of everything kind of banned away here as far as all the roles are concerned. And that's going to leave open Chiron for the Scorpions. So now we have at least a decent look at the Hunter that's going to go over into the dual lane. Still need their Guardian over there on that side for Calvin. But that does leave open Tiamat, who has become still a very prevalent pick, especially when a lot of these other top mages have been banned away. I've also noticed a trend that EU really isn't going towards this Zeus. North America and the SPL really love to go for the Zeus pick. But over in Europe, it's a pick that pretty much has completely fallen by the wayside here, Myth.
Yeah, I feel like Zeus is more at home in a meta where you were fighting constantly, and, well, European SEC likes to play a little bit more of a demure pace to the match. That said, I want to talk about this Odin lock-in just for a moment. Ring of Spears decimates the Scorpions. Artio, Nemesis, Agni, Chiron, all stuck inside of it. That's tough.
Ouch.
Maybe one leap would be nice. Expect some Phantom Shells, I'm sure.
I mean, they do have Ganesh, so he can get himself out of the cage, but that's about it. So yeah, Phantom Shell probably going to be the name of the game over here on the side of the Scorpions. Maybe even two if really necessary out here. But going up against this one, Niflheim Wargs, like I said, top seed versus the lowest seed in the Aaru Scorpions. Scorpions need some big wins here. They need a big upset if they want to try and get their way into Masters. We'll see if they can find that here, at least in game number 1, up against the Niflheim Wargs. We get ready to jump ourselves right into that one. And again, it's going to be a big climb up for this lower seed team. Niflheim Wargs have been nigh unstoppable so far throughout the early part of this phase. A very early group up by the Wargs over around this mid-camp. Davey gets spotted out. He'll immediately dash himself away.
Yeah, I'm expecting this game to be a little bit more so fought around that mid 3v3. Specifically, the Niflheim Wargs, I think, have got a very strong 3v3 between Sarpe on this Thor, Angry on this Tiamat. Your power spike's generally going to come around level 5. The Aaru Scorpions, on the other hand, will have some significant power spikes come 5, specifically Picarino with his ability to apply poke on this Agni pick. But my concern, again, is that ability to match jungle pressure. Sarpe on this Thor, proven that he can very much dominate a match completely on his own, and has some counter matchup potential into this Nemesis, has some counter matchup potential into the Agni as well. Both gods that will not be able to deal with his wall very easily. Could put Sarpe in a position where he can just use that that Anvil of Dawn to reposition himself behind his enemies and just drop a wall behind them. You don't necessarily need to go for the Thor combo, as long as that displacement tool is always available. So keep your eyes on that 3v3, keep your eyes on that 4 to 5 minute mark. I think that's really where we're going to start to see some action. Otherwise, I mean, always can look towards the duo lane, especially when there is a Chiron in the match, one of the more aggressive hunters. Could try and put some pressure on Aspudio early on, especially considering his teleport shouldn't be down for another 30 or so seconds.
Well, I was thinking it might be a little bit of a rough start for the Scorpions Hunter because Davey did get forced into that giddy up first ability there. But because of this new start that everybody's been running here, where these carries are hitting level 2 by the time they get to the lane, no worries, just a little bit slower to get to the lane, if only by a couple of seconds there. So we'll even out in the 2v2. No different Hunters start going here. Still going to be doing the Death's Toll into the Tier 1 Mace. That's been still the common one that we have been seeing. A little bit of that Gilded Arrow Devourer's Gauntlet kind of pop its way out there. Maybe the more interesting one is the Bluestone Pendant into the Tier 1 Kusari that's coming out of Kana over in solo.
Yeah, I'm liking that start. It's very interesting. Kana, I suppose, could be going for the Shoguns, being a little bit more attack speed. You're still leveraging the damage from Bluestone as Sarpe takes a good deal of damage there. One of the downsides of having Angry clear out some of those camps on his own means that Sarpe is going to be stuck on his own in lane. And in 2v1, even though Thor is very strong at this portion of the match, won't be very capable of taking that fight. But yeah, this Odin build, one that I'm definitely keeping my eyes on. Maybe trying to find a little bit more gank potential over in the solo.
Quick teleport out by Sarpe. Good thing that he still had that hammer on that camp clear. Otherwise, that would have been a dead Thor for first blood. He'll go ahead and make his way back to base to reset himself. Angry even taking quite a bit of poke. This early pressure in the mid lane by Picarino and French Emperor have been able to net themselves an HP advantage. But as far as the XP is concerned, Angry does have a very slight lead, about a half level up so far over Picarino.
Yeah, Angry's been soloing out a bunch of these camps and splitting even more with Sarpe, and I suppose that's just fine. Thor not going to be your late game hyper carry. Tiamat certainly will be, and well, eventually Sarpe is going to get that ultimate available to him, and that's a power spike that should make up for a slight XP deficit. Angry already ticking over to level 5. Sarpe just matching the 4 that French Emperor has already been sitting comfortably at. Speaking of, gold disparities are already starting to rear their heads slightly. Aaru Scorpions getting a little bit of a better end of the gold splits. They've been controlling the neutral farm over in the dual lane a little bit more so. Keep your eyes on it. This is very quickly developing. At this point, this amount of gold 3 minutes in is significant.
Yeah, especially the fact that there's not been a single kill yet. Hardly any fighting aside from our typical solo lane shenanigan fights that will always happen throughout the early game. A couple little abilities thrown between that 2v2 over in left side here. Sarpe still waiting to hit that level 5. He's a little bit behind French Emperor, so we see where that XP gap was in mid has kind of also translated the opposite there towards that jungle position. Sarpe does go back, pick up his heavy mace, very close to picking up that first full item alongside French Emperor. And I gotta imagine once that Jotun's Wrath is online, Sarpe gonna be dunking every opportunity he gets.
Yeah, I'm sure, but maybe even beforehand. Sarpe has to play safe here. If he uses the hammer, could open himself up to a little bit of a fight back. But the French Emperor, realizing that there is likely a rotation, will not dedicate himself.
French Emperor caught in the middle of 3, and that should be a dead jungler there. The stun will take away the shield, and Sarpe will tick over to level 5 with a credit to that kill. First blood goes to the Niflheim Wargs. Preds walking a little aggressively in towards the lane here, but he'll be just fine. And the Wargs can close up that gold lead that the Scorpions had.
Simple as that. What a great rotation from Kana. I suppose the communication from Ugly One is, hey, Kana just went back to base. Maybe you can look for an invade here. Kana has teleport, though, so is able to very quickly reposition into the lane, rotate over, and catch out that invade from the French Emperor, who only really had made his misplay by going for the invade. I thought he would try and stick the 1v1 onto Thor once he uses that hammer. Drop the ultimate, drop the slice and dice. Sarpe had already used the wall, does not have that level 5 mark just yet. So probably could have won out on that engagement, but maybe realizing an invade or a counter invade or a counter gank rather was coming his way. Tries to leave the scene of the crime, if you would, and well, can't walk through walls. Kana makes it real simple for everybody, and unfortunately the French Emperor falls down for first blood.
And thanks to the help of that first blood gold, Sarpe able to get that Jotun's Wrath just the same as he was able to hit level 5, now level 6 inside that jungle. So now we'll have the shortened cooldown on that very first use of the ultimate. And we see Preds already going for some obelisk invades here. Not too often that we see these over in the SCC. They're even rarer to see than we've already seen them. As far as the SPL is concerned, that's already something that's not very common here. Davey dashes in aggressive against Preds, but Preds has a jump. That'll get him away, but there's a lot of people closing in on this Fafnir, and with the Dharmic Pillar burned out of Calvin, that's a major teamfight relic now on cooldown. Calvin thought maybe he was going to get ready to charge up for the stun to go to the ultimate, but everyone will be able to get just enough distance.
I mean, looking at the relic selection from the Niflheim Wargs, especially around Preds in that Heavenly Sprint in the first ability, or first relic rather, means that even had the Dharmic Pillars connected, there is a very low, if any, % kill chance there. I mean, you're slow immuning the Dharmic Pillars, you're able to run away very quickly. Worst case, Preds has to use his ultimate, that Draconic Transformation, and leap again. I think just even dedicating Dharmic Pillars there is always a misplay just because of that Heavenly Sprint pickup. Maybe he wasn't privy to it, was at least able to burn off that relic, but that's a higher value trade for Preds.
3 versus 2, Sarpe's taking the boxing match against Picarino. Meanwhile, Angry is going up against Calvin. Angry walks a little bit too far forward, and knockup is good on the French Emperor. Sarpe in the sky will dunk in the back line to find 2, but a quick shell in response, and Picarino turns the fight back around. The burn, just a little bit too much damage, but now Ugly One and Kana have rotated in. Kana picks up 1, the cage will stop Ugly One from finding Preds, and Preds credited to the kill.
Kana sticking around, a lot of damage sunk into Picarino, but that should be the end of the fight. The Niflheim Wargs, and specifically Kana, with another phenomenal rotation, able to work his way in towards this team fight and turn it around for his team. That ultimate is just so impactful for the Niflheim Wargs. The Aaru Scorpions need to expedite shipment on this Phantom Shell. We need Calvin to finish that up sooner rather than later.
Spudio going to use the beads. That way he can get into the Bifrost and get his way out of the 2v1 that he put himself in. Meanwhile, Preds and Angry were dealing with the 2v1. Up against Picarino, was still sticking around after that team fight. Got some good damage, almost able to find a kill onto Preds. Picarino just a little off the mark with that bomb thanks to the leap out of that Fafnir. French Emperor even sticking around here. Stun onto the Nemesis will at least prevent the steal of the mid-camp. Won't prevent him from at least getting a little bit of extra damage onto him.
And look at the XP roundup now. 1 level up for Sarpe as we get a look back at Kana and this rotation in. 4 stack from the Aaru Scorpions. Lines up for the double dunk. Pretty easy turnaround kill. And then the peel there. Great just attention to detail from Kana. Could have gone for the double cage a little bit deeper into the team fight, but realizes his team needs him to peel out rather than be that initiator. And he stops Ugly Ones in his tracks. Puts himself now in a 1.5 to 2 level lead. And is going to control the lane from here on out. I am very impressed so far by Kana's play. He has been dominating this lane and has made the massive strides for his team to establish the lead that they've already got 8 minutes in.
And that Kasari that he picked up earlier on has already been finished up to a Genji's guard. So not going to go for the extra attack speed, just going to go for those extra cooldown resets when he does get hit by some of that magical damage on the opposite side there. And there's quite a bit to go around between the Ganesh, the Agni, the Artio. There's abilities that's going to be flying everywhere around. Not to mention a little bit of extra CDR and a massive influx of MP5. 40 MP5 is a lot, even for just 2 items to pick up, let alone 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's too concerned about that MP5, though. You've already got the blue buff over there. Odin's not exactly the most mana-hungry god in the game. I think it really is about that passive and that additional CDR, and you're right that there are plenty of magical damage abilities to proc, but only once every 30 seconds. Got that internal cooldown. So, gonna be a little while in some of these team fights. Volcana gets that pressure back up. The French Emperor, caught out inside the jungle, is able to survive this time around. Wall was used to initiate the fight, so was not there to remove the shield.
Bomb goes through, only catches Kana. Second one thrown out to get some damage up against this Odin. Kana not really too deterred by everything going on around him. It'll be a wall from Sarpei to block off Calvin's escape path and a retreat. So a blue buff invade. No relics really had to be expended there, although it did seem like Preds ended up using that sprint at least just to make sure that they can get a little bit of extra distance here. Meanwhile, Spudio has had Davies' purple buffs number this entire time. It's the second time we've now seen Spudio up at that purple buff aggressively by himself, even getting the ult out of Davy.
Yeah, Centaurus for purple buff trade is one that I suppose Davy is willing to take. Losing out now on that death immunity means that Spudio, who is already benefiting from a whole lot of pressure in that lane, can likely finally start to hit pay dirt as long as he's able to play aggressively in the next 60 or so seconds while Davy gets that cooldown back and available to himself. That said, Spudio has spent so much time on the enemy purple buff, was not in position to clear out his own, and the Aaru Scorpions, rightfully so, rotate over and punish him for that aggression. 3 stacked on the purple, clean invade here. So duo lane now, slight advantage over to Davy, and well, pretty significant advantage over in the soul lane to the Niflheim Wargs.
We do see a Hydra's Lament coming out of Sarpei, second item here on the Thor, so going to get a little bit more value on those autos right after using some of his combo here. Kana even rounding out with a Glad Shield in that solo lane, so a little bit of extra power, some physical defense to deal with French Emperor whenever he does rotate in towards some of these earlier fights on here. And an invade at the Greater Scorpion by Angry and Preds. That one will stop right away with Sarpei coming over. Some damage thrown onto this Thor, but Picarino's expended a lot of his abilities to only find really 1 big shot up against Sarpei.
Yeah, 2 bombs, the stun, flame wave as well, and only 1 bomb landing, meaning that Sarpei is just going to heal up all of that with the HP5 you get from Eye of the Jungle while hovering inside the jungle. So already got himself back up to 90%. That said, Picarino, it's not that heavy a dedication from him. I mean, the ultimate only costs like 10 mana per, and he's probably already got at least 1 of those bombs back.
Where will Sarpei dunk down? It's towards Ugly One, does manage to find at least the wall double tap after, but Sarpei gets a turnaround stunned up against him from as Ugly One continues to chase in. Kana has shown up and will drop the cage to make sure Ugly One cannot continue the chase. That turnaround from Ugly One really kind of gives Sarpei a nice heat check against this solo laner.
Yeah, gotta think twice when you go up to the double physical defense stacked Artio over in the soul lane. Still around the same level as this Thor as well. Dharmic Pillars committed onto Spudio, uses that ultimate to get himself through the realms. Not the enemy, just himself this time around. That CC immune dash paying for itself in dividends. That said, Calvin loses out on a team fight ultimate, whereas Spudio still gets to maintain a lot of his survivability. Heimdall just that slippery.
So you see the supports meeting up inside the jungle, and as all supports do when they lock eyes in the jungle, just like a Pokemon trainer, they gotta at least hit each other a little bit to see who's got the better damage. This time, I believe it kind of evens itself out there. Spudio's, even though his team is kind of aggressing across the board, has that advantage across the board, he's the only one that's really kind of behind right now compared to Davey. Level 12 to level 13. Spudio's kind of been on the back foot, despite the fact that he's constantly been up at these purple buff invades on Davey's side of the map. As far as the gold, though, I mean, they're both sitting fairly even in their build as well. Crusher and Aussie, now both online for both hunters.
The difference is, how often do we see Preds in the duo lane? How often have we seen Sarpei rotate over to the duo lane? Because I've seen plenty of attempts from the French Emperor. I've seen tons of ultimates from Calvin on this side of the map. The Niflheim Wargs and maybe Spudio just fine with playing a passive rollover in the duo because they know they're doing so well everywhere else. You don't pick Heimdall for his pressure. You pick him for his survivability and team fight presence, and well, Spudio's not so far behind that I think he needs to be concerned.
Sarpei dunked down, a little shy from hitting Calvin there, and that'll be now the quick retreat from the Niflheim Wargs. He said, oh, well, ultimate didn't hit anything. There's no one else around. Let's go ahead and get ourselves on out of here. Even despite this, I mean, this 3-kill-to-1 that the Wargs have right now, able to net them that 2K gold lead to start things out. And Kana once again asserting that dominance in the solo lane, that 2-level lead. It's coming in big for him, able to steal another blue buff away and go for another item in that third slot there, Wingblade, a fairly cheap item, but one that's going to give him a lot of value.
Yeah, tons of magical defense, slow immunity, and plenty of slows to be immune from the Aaru Scorpions. Not only are you immuning that slow, but it's also just making you faster, so the chase potential of Kana goes through the roof every time Ardio's involved, or Nemesis gets involved, or even Calvin with that ultimate. Davey, to a certain extent, with that master shot. There is not a lot that the Aaru Scorpions can do to stop the march of Kana once that team fight starts to rear its head. I'm expecting the Wargs to try and leverage this lead soon. It's about 3,000 gold at this point, 14 minutes in. No neutral objectives besides the Pyromancer has been looked at so far. Gotta think now's a great opportunity for the Gold Fury to be pulled out. That said, just took a look at Kana's relics, and that teleport 100 seconds, so that's back up. Might be a little while until he's willing to rotate.
Could be so. We do see a second shell, though, picked up by Davey here. Calvin picking his up very early on. Still hasn't upgraded that one just yet. No Phantom Shell online for the side of the Aaru Scorpions. We saw how that went in the last little team fire. It was definitely necessary, but we haven't really had a major engagement since that time. But with Davey picking up a second one, that could mean a second Phantom Shell if they really do end up needing to get one just in case Calvin ends up going down. Or could just go to the opposite route, maybe go for that Fortifying Shell. Woo, woo. Pico Renu taking a lot of damage there. Double bomb in. Sarpe used the Aegis and the beads to get away from French Emperor. But man, what a commitment in there by Sarpe for a moment.
Yeah, just double tap from a distance. That's what Thor is allowed to do as Davey gets aggressive, getting up forward in the lane. This is the first time I've seen him feel confident enough in that 1v1 to play that way. Maybe the Aaru Scorpions trying to make use of that TKO on the Sarpe to look towards this. Gold Fury pulled out, but it's burning slow.
Preds is here, does have that scepter. Will jump in aggressively up against Picarino, find the stun. And he'll get knocked up right away. Draconic Transformation and Sarpe now in the sky. Where is his target going to be? Davey, the only one in range, so he'll take that dunk right away and use that hammer to teleport himself right out. But jukes out all 3 shots of the Centaurus from Davey. A bit of a miss there from the Chiron, but the Gold Fury has been stopped by the Wargs.
Man, the Scorpions knew Sarpe was in the air. He goes up on a ward. It was very clear that Davey was ready with the CC immunity. That was an instant beads. But if you're willing to use Centaurus as well, gotta think you should have just used Centaurus.
And, whoa, French Emperor caught inside the cage and burned away instantly by the Niflheim Wargs. That's their 4th kill now up. Davey does get double tapped by Sarpe,
he's done.
But now he doesn't have any way to get out of the Dharmic pillars that were dropped by Calvin here. Spudio walks forward to see if he can help out his teammate, but there's nothing that this Heimdall can do. Another quick pick there for the Scorpions.
Yeah, Sarpe rotates over towards the dual lane maybe for the 2nd time this game. Does not realize that Calvin has yet to leave, and he eats a Dharmic pillars for his trouble. Spudio just nodding along saying, hey man, that's what this lane's been all game. I've been sat on the entirety of this match. You should have just known. Sarpe falls down, and the Aaru Scorpions find a pretty significant win. We'll call it a jungle for jungle trade because that's essentially how it rounds out. And well, one of these junglers is ahead. Sarpe still an entire level lead, had a higher bounty. The French Emperor now down to 0-3. Not too far behind in the build, but certainly behind in experience at least slightly. Yeah, that's a win for the Scorpions.
Spudio gets another Bifrost out away from Davey and Calvin, who seem inseparable as far as this dual lane is concerned. We've seen Calvin over here more often than we've seen Calvin in any of these other lanes up until this point. But look at that level difference in solo. I mean, it's level 19 at only 17 minutes so far for Kana. Does have that teleport back up so he can get right back to the wave. He's got to be getting pretty close to hitting that level 20 point by this time. We'll be able to get it with this wave at the very least, but I mean, Kana is just one step away from being able to upgrade that starter item.
Yeah, you gotta think Kana's gonna want to rotate soon. Picarino loses the dash to the wall, and you gotta think he's gonna lose his life too.
Does drop the Noxious Fumes at his feet, but he's gonna get stunned out. Beads are burned, and before Sarpe can even hit the ground, Preds has finished the job. Kana rotates in towards the mid lane to grab the tier 1 tower, and now with Picarino down, one of the best secures or one of the best steal potentials that the Scorpions have. The Niflheim Wargs now rotate in towards this Gold Fury and start it up.
Still plenty of ultimates available to the Scorpions. Calvin now in a position that we saw Preds in just moments ago. Could look to slow down this Gold Fury play. Will not do so. The Niflheim Wargs take it with relative ease as Sarpe lines up against the French Emperor. does not win out in the fight, but survives regardless. French Emperor might be able to strip away some of this farm, or potentially Sarpei's life if he doesn't realize this chase is still coming his way.
Blink for an Aegis, and it beats immediately. French Emperor steps a little too far forward and doesn't realize that the cavalry has arrived to help out Sarpei. Jungler gets the credit for the kill here. And now Spudio up in a 1v1 against Davey. Davey, for one of the first times this game, will use that giddy up defensively to get back to that tower. Meanwhile, Spudio can just go ahead and clear up that left side camp. But poor French Emperor thought he had that 1v1, didn't realize it turned into a 4v1 right after.
Yeah, Gold Fury was already dead. Not much for the Niflheim Wargs to do on the left side of the map, so might as well rotate back towards that neutral farm. Unfortunately for the French Emperor, that is generally towards the center of the map, and that is exactly where he found himself inside a tower in an elongated fight up against Sarpei. Plenty of time for him to convey to his team, Sarpei that is, that, hey, maybe we shut down this nemesis that's been dashing on me aggressively inside our tower, 7,000 gold down. And they do. The Niflheim Wargs able to punish him very, very well. Speaking of the Wargs, it's time. It's time to group up. Go do the Pyromancer, go do the Fire Giant. Gold, experience, all in the lead significantly at this portion of the game. Playing around that solo side, objectives going to favor them heavily because Kana is still very, very far ahead. Only about 2 levels because they had waited till this point of the game to start leveraging that lead towards these team fights, towards these objectives. So Ugly One's had a good deal of time to farm up himself, but still, no Phantom Shell pickups for the Aaru Scorpions means that any ultimate Kana does drop is just going to find value.
In fact, instead of upgrading at least a single tier of that shell, it's an upgrade onto the sprint. Ugly One is going to wish that they had a shell here to help them out. Wish they had that Phantom to find a path out because they're just getting melted by the damage out of Angry and Preds. Preds credited to the kill there. But that cage by Kana is really getting its full value right now. Not a single one of them have been able to get out of this cage whatsoever.
Yeah, just Calvin, and Calvin has not been the recipient of that ultimate in a good while. Davey dropped low in an auto attack trade, loses out, TKO, and here we go, the Niflheim Wargs. They pulled out the Fire Giant, 4 members. Generally you want your ADC for this one, but just seems to be superfluous.
They don't even really need it here. I mean, with that belt to the Berserker, they melted to the early health bars of the Fire Giant. Sarpei up in the sky just acting as that ward to see if anybody's coming through, but nobody will. It's the Niflheim Wargs with a sub 21-minute Fire Giant to get this game going, and a 10,000 gold lead to boot with all that.
Have we seen Spudio leave this lane yet? I don't think we have. I don't even think he's been in like a mid-team fight. I think the furthest he's gone into the map is Gold Fury.
Yeah, I think so. I can't recall a single moment where Spudio has left here, but it's worked out for him. Level 20 right now on this Heimdall.
Yeah, fortunately for Spudio, the game will come to him shortly. Generally, when you pick up Fire Giant, you want to work down the opposite side of the map, and there's only one tier 1 tower available to the Niflheim Wargs to strip away, and that is in the dual lane. So expect a 5-stack from the Wargs on the left-hand side shortly, and their siege potential is pretty high. You've got decent auto attack stims from Kana and Pred, so Spudio going to be able to shred away these towers pretty quickly. The engage potential still incredibly high because, let me check again, 22 minutes in, still no Phantom Shell pickup for the Aaru Scorpions, so Kana's engage is just going to go unmitigated in these team fights unless we see one of those pickups shortly. Davey caught out by the wall, but Sarpei rightfully disengages. Just worried about the re-engage from the Scorpions.
A double stun on towards Davey, but he'll be fine. Kana instead is the one in a little bit of danger here. Does have that teleport, so can come back in, especially if he decides to upgrade that one, and he will instantly up to the heroic teleport. And we'll come right back up to this duo lane, which is where Spudio has remained this entire time and will continue to do so. Tier 1 tower gone, Tier 2 tower, a foregone conclusion, and now the Scorpions are gonna have to defend against their own Phoenix. French Emperor already going back to base. No, he will not. Sarpei will stop that one. Not quite get the kill, but now Sarpei aggressive up in the sky. Calvin already gone. The Phoenix is down 2, and Sarpei finds 2 on the dunk. Ugly One will be able to make it out of this one, but that Phoenix burned fast.
Yeah, here's the thing about how Calvin dying is awful for the Aaru Scorpions. They finally got their Phantom Shell, and it's not going to be available for at least 30 seconds while Calvin is on the respawn. Maybe Davey can upgrade his before another Phoenix Siege starts, but the Niflheim Wargs are playing with a pretty significant power spike here. Transform into the Dragon, that's the go button.
Bomb finds a couple here, but Angry is fine. The extra healing that's coming out onto this team is really allowing them to stay alive during this one. Masterful shot is good. Phoenix, though, in this mid lane will melt just as quickly as its brother over in the left side. And now the Wargs only have 1 tower, 1 Phoenix left to push up. This one on the right-hand side, and they'll go to it quickly and should be able to melt that one just the same.
Okay, so Calvin at least has respawn, so Phantom Shell available yet again. If the Niflheim Wargs aren't privy to it, maybe we see Kana over-aggress in the team fight and lose out on his life, dedicating himself to that ultimate. There it is. No shell.
Up in the sky, Phantom Shell still not popped. Instead it's a dunk in the backline by Sarpei, finds Pikarito, and the spin right after will secure the kill onto an Ugly One. Gets sprinted out as he's trying to run away as he's low. Friendshipper in the backline gets absolutely evaporated the moment he tries to get this fight going. Ugly One manages to make it back to the base here. Davey, though, is going to go back in a body bag because it's Spudio. Credited to the kill there, and Ugly One and Calvin can't do anything to stop the damage out of the Niflheim Wargs. They'll be able to take game one in the fastest game that we have seen all week long.
In the battle of the top versus the bottom, the top simply won. The Niflheim Wargs prove why they're in that first seed. Still have to finish out the set. The Aaru Scorpions, I'm sure, have got plenty of data on things they need to improve on throughout this next match. Maybe you want to allocate a little bit more of your picks and bans towards early game. Maybe you want to limit Kana in the solo lane. Maybe an earlier Phantom Shell as well, so you're not falling behind 4,000 gold at that 10-minute mark. There are a couple of things, a couple of places, some contention points, if you would, that can be improved on very easily, just whether or not the Scorpions have identified it.
And the Niflheim Wargs really showing that why they are the top team right out here in the European SCC. We're going to take it to a quick break. My goodness, when we come back, we'll have game two ready for you guys. welcome back to the European SCC. Game number 1 went to the number 1 seed out here in EU with the Niflheim Wargs in a dominant game through and through. I mean, from minute 1, this team was able to take control of the game. They never let go of it. Kana over in the solo lane got maximum value out of that cage. I mean, even when we saw the Phantom Shell finally picked up by Calvin towards that late game, Mifflin, I don't think we ever really saw it got utilized there. So this cage, this one Odin pick, may have single-handedly been the hard carry by the end of the game there.
Yeah, I mean, the cages weren't exactly the defining metric in some of these team fights come late game. It felt like a lot of those deaths were just happening to poke damage, initiations from a Thor, maybe the auto attack damage from Spudio, but I think you're right to highlight the lack of Phantom Shell as the early game threat, because Kana was just not allowed to do any wrong. By this point, acceptable that you don't have a Phantom Shell. It's 6.5 minutes in. It's already an early rotation regardless of region of play, EU or NA. We don't generally see these solo leaders get involved that early on. After 10 minutes, after like the second or third cage that's really lost you out on a team fight, maybe you start looking towards a relic that can limit him at least slightly. But we did not see that picked up until about 20 minutes in, and, well, things did not only get bad for the Scorpions 20 minutes in. They were bad from minute 1 to just about minute done. Sarpei as well has a phenomenal performance on this Thor, initiating the majority of these fights, utilizing that ultimate very well to either just strategically and clinically remove individual members from the Aaru Scorpions, or even as a ward for his team around these neutral objectives. If the Wargs want to look towards anything to improve in their game, I think they probably could play a little bit faster around the lead that they were able to establish for themselves. The Scorpions, on the other hand, I think are the ones that need to do some introspection, I suppose, and, well, there's plenty they can improve on.
And we end this game out here 2-0-8 on Kana, 3-3-6 for Sarpei on this Thor. One of the only players still bringing this Thor out into the limelight has been Sarpei, and then Preds can't discount the fact we had a 4-0-6 over here on this Fafnir. Top damage in the game will just barely go over to Spudio, which is honestly to me kind of funny considering Spudio never left his lane for like the entirety of the game. The one time that we see him leave is when they're actually sieging the Phoenixes and then eventually ending the game out there. So maybe a little surprising the fact that Spudio's at the top of the charts.
I mean, you're just tossing Gallarhorn out at max range and lane constantly against the Chiron, who's got Aussie to self-sustain. Look, when hunters are in a certain mood and they're willing to play aggressively, it means that the hunter role at times can match the solo lane in how do I word this? In Mickey damage, damage they didn't earn because you're just trading blows constantly with very low kill potential. That was a lane that was a little bit like that.
Well, we'll see if there's any adaptations made here by the Scorpions. We get ready to go into picks and bans for game number 2. If Kana does end up maybe going back towards this Odin, like we talked about, at the end of last game, going into the pregame segment for this time, maybe pick up that Phantom Shell a little bit earlier. It's a very common thing we see, at least in the SPL, where you get that first relic. Usually by the time you're finishing second item, at the very latest is when we do see that full upgrade to item. Even like once that level 12 hits, you go back, get your tier 1 of your second relic, and then you just fully max out one of those ones there. So maybe a little bit earlier if this Odin does come back through.
Yeah, and when we see that in the SPL, it's up against things like Yamoja, who has already just got like, well, it depends on it. You want to have the straw conversation. Is there 1 or 2 holes in a straw? Is there 1 or 2 openings in a Yamoja ult? Because like it's technically a straw. I would say it's 2 though. Not for straw, that's 1 hole.
Face the bitter winds of Niflheim!
What I'm trying to say here is, Yamoja walls have an opening and people are buying Phantom Shell in the SPL at second item. Odin Cage is 1 massive circle, no openings. Maybe get a Phantom Shell a little bit earlier.
Well, there's one. There's one on the top. You can go up and over the cage, but you have to
right,
be able to jump. You got to jump over that one.
Leap,
but
yep.
Nobody could jump. There was only one person who could go through the wall technically by themselves, and that one was
The bigger they
the
are,
support over on that side of the Ganesh. But we won't see the Odin band out here. It will be the dodgy dodgy Medusa and the Cthulhu, and then Nemesis picked up it with alongside Shiva and the Scorpions. Their bands will be the Khepri Thoth and the Kleena, so Kleena's still not going to make it through here, but just the same common thread that we've been seeing here as far as the USCC is concerned. It's that first pick Heimdall, throw it with another Fafnir, but this early Nemesis pickup by Aaru Scorpions is a little worrisome for you last time because of how much could kind of be counterplayed around that one. The Scorpions are just going to stick to their guns, though.
Yeah, generally I would argue that there's flex potential between Nemesis and Shiva, but in the European SEC we have not seen that flex potential, so I'm willing to say that it... Okay, well, I was willing to say that it was going to be Shiva solo, Nemesis in the jungle, but now Jormungandr locked in. Maybe you've got Shiva over in support. You got to have that conversation of How good is Shiva in support? I'd argue not very. I think Rongyu would say he's like okay over there. Jormungandr in support, I hate. Don't love that at all. He doesn't really have very consistent CC. I mean, knockups in the ultimate that are already pretty difficult to land. Knockup out of stealth, I suppose, but not exactly a consistent CC. Not a massive fan of either of these two picks as support. Maybe you could make an argument that we've seen in the European SEC, I believe it was Zeros in the past, play Jormungandr in mid and go like full damage, transition yourself into like an early rotation style of play. That could open up like Nemesis in the jungle with Shiva and solo, and then you can actually get like another real support, but then your composition has a Jormungandr
Face
mid.
the wrath of a sorceress scorned.
So who's to say? And now Morgan Le Fay's been locked in. So is that really going to be Jormungandr mid? I don't think so.
Probably not. And probably not going to be the Morgan Le Fay jungle like we saw on Scream, considering the Nemesis slash Shiva is here, depending on which one of those goes over into the jungle. So Aaru Scorpions have a little bit of an interesting comp to start things out here. Their bans, though, are going to be Persephone and Agni to kind of keep that mid lane back. But Persephone and Agni weren't even really looked at by the Niflheim Wargs last time around. It was the Tiamat, and they're just going to go and pick that one up for Angry one more time for the Wargs. And then Kana gets to go right back to Desoden, and again, I don't see anybody who can get out of the cage without at least the use of an ultimate there. And that's still only going to reign true for one person. It seems only this Jormungandr is going to be able to get out of the cage by himself.
Yep, so Phantom Shell was the name of the game in Game 1. Well, wasn't and should have been. Maybe in Game 2, needs to be and will be is going to be the topic of discussion for the Aaru Scorpions. This is tough. If you are looking at your top 3 picks as an Aaru Scorpion, you say, all right, I got Shiva, I got Nemesis, I got Jormungandr. None of these guys really deal with Cage super well. We got dominated by Cage last time. Well, let's just ban it. Seems to have not been the topic of conversation with the Aaru Scorpions. Instead, they let it back through and continually just pick gods that get just bummed on by Odin.
Maybe the one shining grace here is that the Jormungandr can kind of breathe on that cage a little bit quicker to kind of open that one up. So maybe, you know, if the Phantom Shell doesn't come out quick enough here, at least maybe the Jormungandr can try and mitigate some of that. Game number 2 between the Niflheim Wargs and the Aaru Scorpions. Once again, though, we see this group up around mid by the Wargs, see if they can spot anybody out. Last time they found Davey, they were able to get a Giddy up level 1 out of him. Nothing more this time around. It will be that Osiris in the jungle by Sarpei. Angry once again, allowed to pilot Tiamat. I mean, pretty much everybody with Sarpei had to kind of change things up here, and I don't think Sarpei had to. Could have just gone with the Thor again if they decided, but this time around, wants to play something a little bit tankier in that jungle.
Or maybe something that hits the ground a little bit faster. Mannequin Scepter plus Katana at level 1 means that this Osiris is a massive threat on the map. Does have a slightly poor matchup into Picarino in that if you don't have beads available, and he will not have beads, Sarpei that is, won't be able to stick to this Morgan Le Fay very easily. Dragonflight, just a very good disengage tool. Very hard to react to that CC, and well, at melee range, you're just getting hit by it, or you have to guess with your beads and try and pre-beads it. As long as that knockup connects, though, should buy the time for Picarino to disengage himself. So, maybe we see Sarpei put his attention elsewhere?
What? Calvin eating a ton of damage. One more auto is all that it takes. And Spudio and Calvin, or Spudio against Calvin, puts up first blood in the dual lane, maybe a second one.
Yeah.
Up against Ugly One over here in the solo lane. Slowed down and with nowhere to go. He's going to do everything he can to get that farm, but Sarpei will strike for the second kill.
Early start for the Niflheim Wargs in this one. This was a explosive start everywhere on the map. I expected Sarpei to find first blood. Full stop. That's what I was expecting. I was projecting Osiris to absolutely dominate on the map, considering the matchups he's got.
Oh no!
Could do it again?
Not again. Ugly One
Yeah,
just got back using the teleport.
He's fine.
And could fall down
He's
through.
fine.
Needs one more auto. Sarpei finds it and
He's not
doesn't go down to the tower. You want to talk about getting aggressive early game here? Well, Sarpei has done just that with the Wargs. A 1K gold lead already a minute in.
And 500 experience to boot. Yeah, all right. Okay, so I suppose a double kill in the solo lane might be just about equivalent to a first blood elsewhere on the map. So I'm going to say that my projection for Sarpei probably just right. The Niflheim Wargs absolutely dominating at this point. The Aaru Scorpions need to lean back a little bit. They need to slow down the pace of the game. They need to find some of that farm. They don't have any pieces that can bridge the early game. Looking at the draft from the Aaru Scorpions, it was the duo that was supposed to dominate, because that is a highly aggressive duo lane composition. The duo lane has done anything but so far.
Calvin knocked back by that Gallarhorn out of Spudio, and I mean, Calvin walked up. He must have hit somebody to aggro those minions there because Preds immediately turns onto him. By the time the hammer hits, Calvin's already down to half HP. And then Spudio, just with that sword, with that first ability, able to drop that one in and put him into critical HP. And then it's just, can you live inside the minions? Well, unfortunately for Calvin, he's going up against a guy that does have 2 cleave autos to be able to deal with that one there. So 3 kills already, 2 minutes in. Niflheim Wargs, they were already going fast last game. Now we're at Mach 5 speed.
We are. Davey in some trouble. Good knockup from Calvin. Should stop the aggression. Spudio utilizing that Bifrost auto cancel may have had just enough damage to shut down Davey in that position, but well, some good support play from Calvin. Make sure that that doesn't go down. French Emperor hovering nearby. Thought maybe we'd see him rotate himself in there, but this is a very slippery, pretty passive style dual lane composition from the Niflheim Wargs. Between Heimdall and Fafnir, I'm not sure which one of those two a Nemesis can really put pressure on. I'd argue neither, as long as Bifrost is available and Pred still has that leap. Once they both tick over to level 5, both will have options, Spudio and Preds that is, that make them even more difficult to shut down. So if the French Emperor wants to get involved in duo, now may just be the time, but has already left. He's on the opposite side of the map, and Spudio's hit 5.
We can see a little bit of that counter matchup that Spudio does have into Calvin. As soon as he saw that Dahmer's tempo come through from Calvin, immediately channeled that Gallarhorn, so that knockup does not go through. Spudio does hit level 5 during that wave, so the ultimate's available. Sarpei rotates over to find Picarino at the mid camp. It's a 2v1 that Sarpei doesn't want to take right now. He'll use that Lord of the Afterlife to go out, but Angry will use the leap to go right back in. French Emperor may have stepped a little bit too far forward to keep that fight going. Does have the double dash to get themselves back out. And Sarpei just off the mark with that tether right after that flail. So, no kills in the mid lane so far, but getting very close.
Yeah, Picarino must have used the Dragonflight on the initial pull of the camp, because does not use it to peel off Sarpei. Takes a whole lot of damage initially as a 1v1, and the duo between Spudio and Davey will end in an ultimate for beads trade. Davey loses the relic, Spudio loses the ultimate. Davey also loses the fight, but does tick over to level 5 at least on wave. So should have a slight advantage in kill potential in the dual lane for about 60 or so seconds while Spudio waits for that ultimate to come back up.
Will be at least a little bit of slower farm here towards the mid lane, though. Angry with all this extra farm that he's been able to get, has hit level 7 compared to only level 6 out of Picarino. Both of them still sitting same item here. Sarpei will finish up that katana for an early stone cutting sword. Purple buff invade attempted by Davey and Calvin. They will not be able to grab that one away. Instead, it's Sarpei on the run in. Will use the blink to get in aggressively. Pops that tether to jump on top of Davey. Does land with the ultimate right afterward, and one more sickle after Sarpei. Credited for the first kill of the fight. Calvin falling low, stunned out by Preds, and slowed down and chopped away. Sarpei picks up the double, now over in the dual lane.
What a disgusting counter ultimate from Sarpei. You think to yourself, okay, well there's no way we're dying here. I'm CC immune. I'm healing. I'm regenerating mana, not just for me, but also for my ally. Oh, he hit both of us with Lord of the Afterlife? I'm not healing at all? Easy turnaround for the Niflheim Wargs. Now 5-0, as many kills as there are minutes in this game, and the gold lead has expanded at a mighty pace. What are we talking about here? 2,500, 5 or so minutes in. This is about the same gold lead we saw at the 10-minute mark for the Niflheim Wargs. Half the time, and well, the equal rewards.
Same on the XP as well, 2,500. You can see that kind of spelling a level for every single role across the board. No one has a massive lead, but one level up this early in the game for every single person is not got to feel great here for the Aaru Scorpions. We already see Greater Scorpion do go down on the side of the Wargs. Calvin doing everything they can to try and get some aggression going, try and get some CC in. Bakana is back from the solo lane, and there is no shell, no phantom to get anybody out. It's a bloodbath within the cage, but nobody has gone down just yet. Picarino falling low, Angry, credit to the kill, but Preds does find a hammer on the French Emperor. Sarpei closes the gap, in a little late, but they still managed to grab 2.
My dude, French Emperor, missed a slice and dice that would have confirmed the kill on Nakana. I'm not talking about like he missed the slow. He missed the whole ability. Now, support on the retreat. Calvin into the right side jungle. Great pathing. May have just bought him, what was that, like 3 more seconds? Yeah, 3 more seconds.
If so, maybe there, but that Minotaur out of the mid laner does catch him out, slow him down. and that's enough for them to close out the gap. And the Niflheim Wargs, well, they were up 2,500, like a minute ago when we talked about it. Now they're up 4,000 gold this early on. And oh yeah, by the way, Pyro's not even up yet. Gold Fury's not even up yet. This is just the farm play and the kills that the Niflheim Wargs have been able to capitalize on.
So Preds at level 7, Fafnir, by the way, that's the support.
And he stole it.
For the Niflheim Wargs. He's lined up against Picarino, Morgan Le Fay, mid laner, level 8. This support might just win any 1v1 on the map up against the Aaru Scorpions. Put it further in perspective, Ugly One, the soul laner, level 8. The support on the other side, 2 levels down, just about. Pred's going to tick over to 8 very shortly. See the team fight. It's a good initiation from Calvin.
Davey throws a lot of damage out, slows down Sarpé and Spudio. Sarpé has to use the Lord of the Afterlife, and Spudio is trying to fight into this 3v1 that's here. Now that Angry has shown up, though, the tides have turned. Davey goes down to Angry. Sarpé blinks back in at no mana and low health to find a kill up against French Emperor. That one goes to the double over towards Angry, and he might just make it a triple. Jumps in aggressively, finds the knock-up after, and it's a triple for the mid on the Wargs.
11 kills in 8 minutes now for the Niflheim Wargs, pushing their gold lead to a point that I am no longer willing to contextualize. It is that far ahead of what we can see from the Aaru Scorpions, just about an entire item in just about every single role. Thought maybe we'd see Ugly One rotate across the map. He thought about it himself, slithers his way towards mid, doesn't use that teleport, does not get there in time, at least clears out a wave, so somebody from the Scorpions farming somewhere on the map. That said, somebody else from the Wargs, Kana, was clearing out back camps. He was clearing out his own waves, and he was making sure that once French Emperor did respawn, there was nothing to farm back up.
And another buff steal by just Preds' own merit here. Steals that purple away. Ugly One, meanwhile, has to use that World Serpent to get away from Kana and Sarpé. Even with this early double Fizz prot, that is still not enough to stop the onslaught that is Sarpé right now. Level 11 on this Osiris, 5-0-2. Got that Stone Cutting Sword earlier, and then a second item, Toxic Blade, to fight up into this team. An extra little bit of flat pen is already starting to pay off some good work.
Yeah, some flat pen, some great anti-heal as well. Not that he really needs it, because my man has been landing every single ultimate. Davey just has to use his own ultimate to make sure that Spudio doesn't legitimately remove Calvin from the game. Each one of those auto attacks doing about 20% of the support's HP bar. Speaking of Kana on the other side, speed buff invade attempted, and I'm surprised he stopped. I'm surprised anybody could have stopped him, let alone a level 8 Nemesis.
Well, he will steal a back camp, at least first trouble, but a little bit low on mana here. Does have that case, so no real threat
Nice try.
to himself. Lord of the Afterlife a little bit short, but Sarpé will still find Ugly One as soon as he does come out of the depths and hit him with a little bit of poke right back. Preds, level 9, up against a level 9 mid and a level 8 jungler. Right now, Preds is, until Ugly One just now ticks over to level 10, was a higher level than every single person on the Scorpions as the support. If you want a good status check on how the game is going so far for the Wargs, it's going pretty swimmingly here.
I was nearly expecting the Wargs to just go ahead and pull out the Fire Giant. Ugly One was nearby, I suppose, so probably a bad call, but when you're playing with as hot a hand as the Niflheim Wargs, why slow down whatsoever? Maybe Spudio can continue to do what he's been doing for the entirety of the set, which is bullying the duo lane, even in a 2v1. Calvin will not leave, and probably shouldn't, because if Davey's left alone with this man, well, he's just going to die.
I think Spudio will have just soloed out the support here. Might as well get a kill onto Davey as well. No, they split their attention. Calvin able to slip his way on out of there right after the ultimate comes through. But can he make it back to base in time? No, he has to stop and channel that blink instead. That's not only, well, no ultimate down, but at least the relic burned on the support. But man, I mean, we were talking about the presence that Kana had last game, the fact that Phantom Shell was such a necessity. No Phantom Shell. Calvin went for a blink, and it has not paid off. And, well, Davey should have just gone back to base under the tower and said Preds finds in between the towers.
Man, I was going to sing Davey's praises because it was a really good play from the Warriors to commit themselves to Davey, but he pre-beats the hammer. Preds essentially just walks up to point-blank range and says, hey, start giddy up. I'm going to knock you out of it with a stun. Well, pre-beats will stop that in its tracks. Kana now in some trouble in a 3v1. Maybe I misspoke. I forgot he's level 13 and Odin and has an HP shield and a 2-level lead over his opposition and a 4-level lead over the jungler. So maybe was not in any sort of danger. Sarpé, though, maybe. Could be. He's low HP.
Yeah, he is low HP, but so is a lot of other people, especially Picarino. Angry is just Walking at the enemy team. Oh, by the way, Kana has come back. Sarpay blinks in. French Emperor goes down. Picarino right after, and Calvin will dance in the middle of 3, but not going to get a whole lot more beyond there. It is a double kill and a forfeit vote at the end here. Only a 12-minute game here for the Niflheim Wargs. They close out this set 2-0.
Look, I know a lot of people, and it's a conversation I had with a lot of my teammates in the past. I'm a big F6 guy. I am a huge proponent of F6ing. It's in the game for a reason. That was a match where you are so far removed, not for trolling, not for lack of trying. I don't think that the Scorpions went out there and didn't play their best version of SMITE, or at least tried to. Maybe they had a bad day. That was a game I think is like a 99.95%er. You're already at the bottom of the league. You're playing against the top. That's a tough one. I'm not going to hold it against them for giving up there.
Yeah, Niflheim Wargs just controlled that game from the very beginning of it. Started with a kill over in duo, and then a double kill basically over into the solo lane to start this one out. Niflheim Wargs take the 2-0. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back after this break to break down the set. Welcome back to our SCC set that is now concluded with a very decisive victory out of our #1 seed from Europe, the Niflheim Wargs, with only 12 minutes of play here in our second game, have closed this one out in order to secure themselves that top seed spot. I believe it's a full secure of themselves at the very least out to here. But just a dominant performance across the board. Unfortunately, Aaru Scorpions just couldn't make it up here today. I don't know if it was just maybe a slow day for them out here, maybe not fully awake out, but this second game was just over from like the 20, 30-second mark.
I mean, a first blood on first wave into a second blood on second wave on the opposite side of the map into a third blood on the same guy on the opposite side of the map will probably do that to you. I mean, there are plenty of arguments to be made. Did the Aaru Scorpions have a bad draft? I'd say yes, others might disagree. Did they execute improperly on the draft? I'd say yes, others might disagree. Were the Wargs just playing some really good Smite today? Yes, absolutely, and you can't disagree because they 2-0'd and possibly the fastest set of the last, 5 years in Smite. So, look, these are the hardest games to break down because there's not much you could say about what the Aaru Scorpions were capable of doing, and there's not much you can complain about from the Niflheim Wargs. So I think the only thing I could say of value in a situation like this is congratulations to the Niflheim Wargs for the first seed.
Hey, their 2 games that they won here today for the Wargs was faster than most of our average games yesterday for just a single game out here. So really kicking up the pace here in EU at the very least. I mean, Angry rotates over. I mean, this is a minute 8 triple kill out of the mid laner in this 4v4 bloodbath in the duo lane. You talked about the kill over in solo lane earlier where it happened. Get a kill on the Jormungandr. He teleports in, and Sarpe says, "Oh, word? Teleports down? Cool. Let's go. Let's just go ahead and repeat that same mentality, repeat that same process, and get that kill there one more time." And I mean, when your Osiris is already up 2 kills, your Jormungandr is down 2 kills. Oh, and by the way, there's also no Phantom Shell to be able to deal with this Odin that Kana drafted a second time in a row.
Did he even cage? Did it matter? He got one really massive
Yeah,
cage.
I think he got 1 cage, and somebody almost died on his team after that cage, but I think that's the only time we actually saw him really use it this game.
Yeah, it was not super necessary. When everybody's popping off, you don't need any individual guy to do it, right? And this time around, I don't even think Kana got himself a kill. Didn't need to when your Osiris is 7-0. Don't need to when your mid laner is 6-0. You just won, all right? Stop asking me about it.
Yeah, it's a big win here for the Niflheim Wargs. Let's take a look, though, at the schedule here for the EU SCC just to see what all happened so far this week and what you may have missed out on. If you did just now tuned in, it was a lickety-split set here. The Niflheim Wargs with a fast 2-0 over the Scorpions. The Ravens and Hex Mambo both able to find 2-1 wins against their opposition earlier in the week. And that will round out as far as week number 4 of the EU SCC. There is still one more week to go, and we'll be able to talk about that in a little bit here and how the standings will affect with that one. Well, nothing will change. The Wargs will remain the top seed. The Aaru Scorpions will remain down there at 6th seed.
Yeah, I believe even if the Highland Ravens win their next set and the Niflheim Wargs lose theirs, head-to-head will go over to the Niflheim Wargs. So I'm confident in saying they're staying in first seed. Not so confident that I wouldn't be willing to take in new information that might change my decision to be confident in speaking out those words. But confident enough to speak them nonetheless.
Well, it's going to be a pretty strong performance here for the Wargs in their at least first phase here of the SCC. Remember, top four teams in both regions of the SCC will make their way over to the Masters tournament. So, with a couple of these teams still fighting for that last little spot down there at the bottom, they really battle for that 4th seed to make sure that they can try and secure their way in. But the Wargs have guaranteed their spot. I believe over in NA, the Hounds have been able to secure their spot up towards Masters as well. So, still have a lot going on between all the regions, between all these teams out of here. And with one more week of play, you never know what's going to shake out.
No, you do not, which means you have to stick around. You got to watch every single set if you want to call yourself a Smite fan. I'm gatekeeping today. If you don't watch every single Smite set, SCC, SPL, SOC, OCE, SCL, whatever it is, you're not a real Smite fan.
I don't even
so
think,
watch them all.
I don't even think some of those exist anymore, Mifflin.
Yeah, well, their VODs are out there. YouTube.com/SmiteVOD. If you want to watch those games and, be allowed to put Smite fan in your Twitter bio.
There you go. That's a nice little shout there to the SMITE VOD channel. But that's all we got for the SCC. It's going to be a few more minutes, though, before we are able to get you guys to the SPL waiting room. And then the SPL will kick off at 1 p.m. So make sure, take yourself a nice little break. We'll be back in just a little bit with the waiting room.